Welcome to episode 64 of the Luke Winstel Show. I'm joined by Brad Keller, Kansas City Royals pitcher. Brad has been a rising star in their organization for the past couple of seasons. Today we talked about the MLB's response to COVID-19 and his path to the MLB. Now we'll dive into the interview. Brad, thank you for joining me on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing really well. I'm excited to talk to you. My first question, for your spring training, how was it going before it got stopped?
It was going really good, actually. Just like any other spring training, it was just the timing of it. I mean, obviously, looking back on it now, it was inevitable, I guess. But, the timing of it was terrible because we were literally a week out from leaving. We were leaving camp pretty early. We were going to Milwaukee to play 2 games there against the Brewers, and then down into Chicago to open up the season. So, as a starter, we were all built up, and I think I just finished my 4-inning outing. My next outing would have been 5 or 6, and then the season started. So we were all built up, ready to go, and then ultimately got shut down. So, but before all that, I mean, everything was going great.
Yeah, I know the coronavirus has been a big disruption to your routine. So everything's going good. You're building up. You get stopped. Now when it's time to get back going, how long do you think you're going to need?
So that's the tough part. I mean, it's hard to, no one's really gone through this, so no one really, they always say, the second time you get hot is when, ultimately you get hurt. So we got to be super cautious about that because, like I said, we were built up to 5 innings, and then we ultimately get shut down. We almost got to start all over again. We got to start back at, 1 or 2 innings our first outing, 3 innings our next, 4 innings, and so on. But I mean, ultimately, I think if we get prepared in a time like this, we don't really have a set schedule, but we're mentally we can stay prepared and stay ready, and physically we can stay prepared and stay ready. I think we could get ready in about 3 weeks or so. I know it's still a long time. And I know a lot of people want baseball back soon, and so do we. But we kind of got to be smart about safety and health of our bodies.
To help starting pitchers like you, do you think a roster expansion to 27 or 28 or maybe even more guys to help the pitching staff and starters out? Do you think that would be a good idea?
I think so. I think definitely early on. Like I said, us being smart, if they kind of give us a shortened spring training, like a 2-week spring training, it'll be really hard. We don't really want to push it too much, with significant time off that we've had. So I think, giving us 2 extra guys or 3 extra guys on the pitching side would definitely be beneficial for starters.
We were talking before we started and went on the show here about a CBS article that's come out and said that there's a bunch of rule changes the MLB could test or try in the 2020 season. A lot of people have been talking about a lot of different ways to get baseball. Some of them are an automatic strike zone because the umpire, generally an older guy, would not be able to socially distance and umpire. You could have ghost runners so players aren't close to each other. There's also the 1, 2, 3 hitters could start every inning. Does any of that sound good to you? Are those good ideas, or should we just wait it out?
To me personally, I think we should just wait it out. I mean, you still want to keep the integrity of the game. You still want to play the game the way it was meant to be played. Having ghost runners, it's like wiffle ball over again. You just,
yep.
say someone hits a single, it's like, oh no, he went to third base. It's like, well, no, how can you prove it? Stuff like that. I mean, I think, that it's kind of a time to experiment with, rules, but I think more so staying within the game. I think that's kind of those rules are kind of out there a little bit. But I definitely think people really are missing baseball, and I think they're going to try to do everything they can. But I think they're going to definitely try to stay within the game.
Well, to follow up on that with the automated strike zone, I know it's something that the MLB has been testing and looking at. I know from watching on TV and watching in person and having played the game, the umpires are obviously not always right. Sometimes they miss some big calls, but do you like the idea of an automated system?
I mean, I think the human error and the human part of the game is what makes it fun. Obviously, umpires, they're just like us. Like, they make mistakes too. Like, and I think it's becoming more and more often that their calls, especially with replay and everything, their calls are definitely, getting out there a lot more and getting a lot more attention. But, I think seeing it happen in the fall league and hearing about guys that pitch in the fall league, I think the automatic strike zone is definitely going to be beneficial for pitchers because they're saying that, like, if you threw a curveball at the bottom of the zone and it clipped the bottom line and it would end up in the dirt and the catcher would, like, drop and block it, that they would still get called for strike 3 because it hit the bottom of the zone. So basically, when they talk about north and south, it's beneficial for the pitcher because pitchers hardly ever get the top of the strike zone, called strikes unless you get a swing through or a foul tip. It's almost no umpire calls the top of the strike zone. But as far as width of the plate, like a few balls out or a few balls inside, like those are going to be kind of tough. But I mean, it'd be interesting. Like talking to some of the guys that were in the fall league this year with us, and I just kind of picked their brains and hear what they had to say. It was kind of 50-50 on their response. Like a lot of them liked it because you were getting more strikeouts, but you also were. It was almost like forcing you to throw the ball over the middle of the plate because if you try to go fastball away, you weren't getting like those borderline calls anymore. It had to be like in the zone. So I think it'll be interesting. I think it'd be cool to experiment in spring training, but I think it's going to take a while to incorporate into big league baseball.
It's sounding to me like something that's just built to make the strike calls and ball calls a little more accurate kind of changes the game a lot for a pitcher and the mentality.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely does. I think guys are going to be, it's almost forcing guys to be a lot more aggressive, instead of like trying to pitch to get strikeouts. Like you're almost pitching to get contact because you don't know, if you're going to, most of the time guys kind of like, the umpire, get deeper in the game. He's kind of giving you a little bit more, and you kind of start backing up some strikeouts. But, when you don't really get that extra little bit late in the game, you're kind of getting tired, you got to save those pitches that you were trying to throw early on. So, I think it's going to force guys to be a lot more aggressive in the zone and go after guys.
Well, back to talking about the pandemic and getting baseball back, do you think that the MLB should wait until fans can be in the stadium to play, or would you be okay with just getting out there and playing games, whether you have fans or not?
See, that's tough. Like, the fans make the games. That's the nerves you get, like the excitement, the adrenaline, that all comes from the fans' energy. So I definitely think that's something that we need to, whether it becomes like more playing music or something like something that they might have to do some digging about. But I think ultimately people just want baseball back. I think that's how that's kind of my stance. A lot of the other guys that I've been talking to, it's like we don't care, where or who's in the stands or whatever. We just want to play baseball. We want to. This is the game we love. This is our jobs. Like we want to get back out there. We want to and almost bring the country together. I feel like everyone's kind of not really knowing what to do right now. We're just kind of all just sitting here, bored. I guess people aren't working, and a lot of people are stressed, and it's going to be a way to get their minds off stuff about what's actually going on and just sit down with your family or whatever and just watch a baseball game. I think that would be really special to do, and I'm hoping we're one of the first sports to get back. So either way, fans and no fans, I think we just need baseball back.
Definitely. Well, now I want to dive into your journey to making it to the major leagues. How would you describe it? What was your path like?
Definitely a lot of ups and downs. I feel like that's everybody's journey also. I don't think anybody has a straight shot. Or I shouldn't say anybody, but very few. But, it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I really enjoyed my time in the minor leagues. I went to some crazy places, met some amazing people, friends for life. Just been really special, and to finally be living out my dream has just been a dream come true. It's just been super super fun. Everything what I expected plus more. It's just but like I said, I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
Was there ever a point for you along the way where things just started to click? Something changed or something fit into place and you started to really cruise from there on out?
I never felt like, still to this day, I don't even feel like that I've ever got that feeling. I feel like every time I go out there, I try to learn something new, whether that's game day or just, regular practice, regular bullpen, whatever. Try to learn something. But I think ultimately, to answer the question, I think my low A season, my very first bullpen, I was in Kane County in Illinois, and it was freezing cold. I remember this to a T, and at the time, I never threw a sinker before. I was only a four-seam slider changeup guy, and my pitching coach at the time was Doug Bachler, and he was like, "Hey man, I really want you to try this. I want you to throw a sinker." And we messed around with a few grips, and I found a sinker that really really helped me, and was pretty consistent right off the bat. Like I think I threw it 10 straight times in this bullpen, and every pitch was the exact same. So it was like, okay, like this is the one we need. And that year, I ended up having like a 2.6 ERA in the whole season, and had probably the best year of my life. And it all came from one bullpen of just learning a new pitch. So I definitely think that was the time where I was like, okay, like I think I can pitch in pro ball now. Because at the time, like going into that year, I struggled mightily in rookie ball. I was pretty young too, so I was very naive to a lot of stuff. I wasn't really a pitcher. I was more so of a thrower at the time. I was just kind of going up there and trying to throw the ball as hard as I could, and super wild, a lot of walks, and I didn't really grasp pitching. I just really enjoyed going out there and playing. So I think at that moment, throwing that bullpen, I was kind of like, all right, this is the time where I could, I think I could pitch here. I can start understanding what I want to do, how I want to get guys out, and ultimately pitch in the big league.
Awesome. I think I read recently in an article that you've added or been working on a curveball. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. Yeah, I haven't really been able to throw a changeup in the last 2 years. Probably even stems back further about 3 years. So I've kind of been going, just being a two-pitch pitcher with a fastball and a slider. And so, last year's kind of challenging because, I already had a year under my belt, and a lot of the teams that I'm facing already knew how to scouting report on me and I just basically was throwing fastballs every pitch, and, guys are sitting back and waiting for it. So, going into this offseason, me and our pitching coach, Cal Eldridge, and we trying to figure out a way, either, work with a splitter, change up or something, trying to find something, or ultimately go to a curveball and see what we can do there. And when I was in high A, in Visalia, California, the Diamondbacks wanted me to throw a curveball as well. And so I kind of had an idea of how to throw it, but at the time I really wasn't good at spinning the ball very well. So I got back home at Full Count Baseball in Georgia, and got on the Edgertronics and their Rapsodo and really tried to hammer down a curveball and try to get the good feel, try to get the good spin rate and all that stuff on it. So it definitely helped me out a ton in spring training this year, and I was really excited to bring it into the season.
Well, back to your journey. I know that you were a Rule 5 draft pick. You're picked in that draft. You eventually end up in Kansas City. Heading in, did you want to be selected?
Everyone wants to be protected on the 40-man. I think, when I was with the D-backs, they had this mural hanging on the wall, and it's, they're homegrown players, and it's guys that they've drafted, been through the minor leagues, and made their debut with the D-backs. And ultimately, my goal is, I wanted to be on that board. This is the D-backs were a team that drafted me. They believed in me, gave me a chance when I was 17 years old coming out of high school. So I was like, that was the team that I really wanted to be with at the time. And when I didn't get protected, get put on the 40-man, I was like, you know what? Like, I've been here before. I've kind of been an underdog. It's like, I'm just going to go in it with an open mind, and whatever happens, happens. And if any team does pick me up, I'm going to be super excited for the opportunity, and I'm going to try to make the most of it. And it was kind of crazy. I was driving to workouts one morning, and the morning of the Rule 5 draft, and my agent called me, and he was like, hey, man, you got picked up by the Cincinnati Reds, and congratulations and all that stuff. And I was like, I really wasn't expecting much of the Rule 5 draft, because I've always heard it's like really hard to kind of, go throughout the whole process, because the team that picks you has to keep you on their roster for a whole year. So, I was like, okay, like, I got the opportunity. Now I just got to make the most of it. And so I got picked by the Reds. I was calling my family, called my brother, my mom and dad, and when I hung up with him, my agent called me back and was like, hey, man, just kidding. Like, you got traded to the Royals. And I was like, oh, sick. So I was basically a Red for all of 15 minutes. And then I, I had to pick up the phone, call my parents, my brother back and everything, and told them I got traded to Kansas City. And, I super thankful for the opportunity, super blessed. And, just like I said, I tried to go into spring training. I knew it was going to be hard, and I knew, I'm coming from Double-A when most of the guys there are going to be in big league camp have already, Triple-A or big leagues. And I was just like, I'm just going to try and enjoy it as much as I can, because I don't know if, I could get sent home the day I got there. You know what I mean? I could have got sent back to the D-backs. So I was just like, I'd soak everything I can learn, take all the veterans' brains, try to learn as much as I can. And, if I do get sent back, hopefully I'm going to be a better person from it. So, that was kind of my mindset going in, and ultimately I made the opening day roster and made my debut on opening day, which was really special.
Yeah, I'm wondering what that is like for you. Coming from Double-A, you're guaranteed a ticket to the major leagues, basically. You make it through spring training. They want to keep you on the roster so they can have your rights as a player. But what's it like for you going from facing Double-A competition straight to being a guy that is on the major league roster all year long?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a big step. I think adrenaline kind of carried my entire rookie year. I was just like so hyped up the whole season. But I mean, it was, at first I really didn't know how to attack it. And I remember I was warming up for my first big league appearance in spring training, and our bullpen coach at the time, Vance Wilson, I was all over the place. I was just absolutely spraying, like basically hitting the backstop with every fastball, like spiking every slider. I felt like I've never pitched before in my life. And I remember him just like kind of like, it was after like my 10th pitch, he just like looked at me. He's like, dude, you're going to be all right. He's like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to throw every fastball right down the middle, and you're going to throw every slider right down the middle. And I was just like, okay, like it was like his way of like calming me down. And I just remember thinking, I was like, I'm going into a big league game. Like I was facing the Giants down at Scottsdale Stadium, and it was later in the game, so at the time, like a lot of the like big name players weren't playing, but they still had guys in that roster, that had service time, that had big league time, that I knew their names. And so I remember going in there, and the first batter was Gregor Blanco, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy's big leaguer or whatever. And like on 2 pitches, I got him the ground out, and it was like that's all I needed. That's all the sense that I needed. I was like, okay, like I can pitch here. So that first outing I did well. Second, third, fourth, I think I ended up giving up like 1 run the whole spring training, and like that was just a way to kind of reassure myself, like okay, like everything that I've been nervous about, like is my stuff going to play here? Am I going to be able to like throw strikes in this league? Because you always talk about how small the strike zone is. Like, am I going to be able to do all this stuff? It was just like kind of like a relief to go through that experience and be able to tell myself like, okay, I can do this. So, and then once I got into the season, once scouting reports were a thing, and you don't really, I always thought like I'd kind of be super nervous to talk, say Mike Trout or Albert Pujols gets up there. It's like, how am I going to be able to like tune out the names that I'm facing or the people I'm facing and just go out there and attack them like another hitter? but for some reason I found it pretty easy to do that. And it honestly became fun whenever those guys stepped up there, because it was like, this is exciting. Like I'm getting to face the best of the best.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned that you started coming out of the bullpen and eventually you progressed into the rotation. For a team that is trying to groom a young pitcher into a starter, would you suggest letting them get a taste and kind of dip their toe in the water coming in through the bullpen and working their way in, or going straight into the fire and being a starter?
I definitely think coming out of the bullpen is key. I think just from the workload standpoint of it, like being able to, go out there in your first outing, and all you have to think about is getting 3 outs. That's all you can care about. And I think that was the most beneficial thing to me, is just like a little bit at a time. I felt like when I first got up, it was like one inning, and then they started giving me like 1 1/3 or 1 2/3, like 1 1/3, and then it was like, okay, like you can go 2 innings. So then I became, going 2 innings here and there. It was just like a workload standpoint. I think, because the adrenaline is like so much, and like the nerves and everything is so much, and just to be able to go out there and just go 1 inning and just get 3 outs, especially coming from a starter, when like your mindset was like, this is my game, and I want to pitch all 27 outs of this game. And, when you're a starter, that's your mindset. Like, you're not necessarily like conserving, because I don't believe in like conserving energy, but you're like also like, I want to get deep in this ball game. So, you kind of like, pitch to that. You're not really showing guys, your stuff right away or whatever. And as of, coming out of the bullpen, it was like, this is my best stuff. I have to get you out one, and here it is. You know what I mean? So it's just like, from a workload standpoint, I think that's definitely beneficial to come out of the bullpen. And then once you get into the starter role, kind of get built up a little bit, it becomes a lot easier to manage yourself, because it's like, okay, well, I know what 100% is when I was coming out of the bullpen. It's like, I can also pitch here and then get to that 100% later on in this game. So I think it was definitely a learning experience when I was coming out of the bullpen, but definitely helped out a ton.
Definitely. So now I'm wondering, with you being a younger player who has come up in the major leagues earlier in your career, you're a younger guy. So for you, being under team control for the next few years, is there any talk going on right now of trying to get an extension or trying to work anything out like that?
No, honestly, I think all the talks are basically on getting baseball back. I think those opportunities right now, I think everyone's kind of put those on the back burner, just because, without no game, there's no payments or anything like that going on. And ultimately, to me, I don't really play the game to get paid. I play the game because I love the game. I love the excitement. I love the adrenaline. I love going out there and competing with the guys. I love the team aspect. So, as far as I kind of, whatever happens financially or whatever like that. Ultimately, I go out there and just love to play that game. And so, like I said, I think most talks are on getting the game back. So.
Yeah, I was curious because I know now would either be the time where everything's pushed aside because of the virus, or everyone has more free time so you can do a little more talking. So I guess the talks with the GMs about money have stalled right now.
Yeah, it's just kind of, a lot of them, I don't know if you've seen recently, but, most teams are only paying clubs or playing officials through the 31st of May, and after that, we're hopefully to have a season to where we can, generate some more revenue. But, the future of the season and people's, paychecks are in jeopardy, along with a lot of other, people in America right now. So I think ultimately that's us on the back burner. We're just trying to figure out a way to get back.
Awesome. Well, Brad, that's all the questions I had for you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you again to Brad for taking the time to come on the podcast. Next up on the Luke Winstel Show, I'm talking with Rob Vaca, who has one of the coolest jobs in all of sports. He helps NFL players off the field with everything from finances to foundations and charities. That concludes this episode of the Luke Winstel Show. I'm Luke Winstel. Thank you all for tuning in.